You're listening to the weekly Dartscast, and now your co-hosts, one-time UK Open Riley's qualifier participant Alex Moss, and the one-time VIP guest of Barry Hearn, Burton DeWitt. 180! Hello and welcome to a new episode of the weekly Dartscast. Alex Moss here. We've just about recovered from our 200th episode celebrations last week, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, Darts statistician Burton DeWitt. How are you doing?
That is the best hello in the 201 episodes we've recorded. I have all the energy in the world now from that. So I'm doing fantastic. How are you, Alex?
Glad to help. Yeah, I'm doing good. Thank you. A busy week so far. My team, Stowmarket Town, getting promoted. Hopefully some more positive news coming soon, and recording this on my new laptop as well. Apologies for the audio issues my end for the last few weeks. Hopefully that's been sorted now, but we've got lots to get into on the show. We've got two players that are going to be involved in the final week of the Premier League next week. James Wade and Nathan Aspinall both calling in. We've also got a call into the Faroe Islands for the first time on the show coming up. But let's start with the Premier League, which is coming back next week, the final week. Final 5 nights, Monday to Friday. The fans are coming back too for the first time this year. Is this the most excited you've been for a week of darts for a while?
I'm excited for what it means, the fact that the fans are back, because, we've been hanging tight and laying low for over a year now. I mean, it's not over, and it's not going to be back to normal probably anytime this year compared to what was normal before. But it's getting pretty darn close, and we'll keep getting closer, and having a crowd back and having a sizable crowd back fairly soon will just do wonders to make us feel like it is normal, even though we're still in the middle of a pandemic. The light at the end of the tunnel is no longer just a light. We can now actually make out the shapes. We can make out the mountain behind us or in front of us, and we're getting there very quickly now. So I'm excited for that. As far as on the darts end, I mean, it will be nice to hear cheers and chants and to see the crowd and to see players play up to the crowd, which they haven't had the opportunity to do other than a couple of tournaments and one night at the World Championships over the past year. That will be nice. But I'm not really beyond that more excited for this than I have been for any other week of the Premier League this year. I think the most excited I've been for darts recently was for the World Championships, because at the end of what was just a very long and difficult year for everyone, that the PDC was able to get that event together, even if it didn't end up other than the first night being able to be in front of a crowd, to still be able to get that event, put it together, bring all the best players in the world, have them be able to participate despite COVID numbers being at their worst, and having just a great a little bit more than a fortnight of competition. That was the most excited I was, at least since last June, when play finally restarted. Just to get something was amazing then. But the World Championships, I was just really ready for, and it was a great escape from a terrible year. So I'm going to say no, it's not the most excited I've been for a week of darts. It is the most excited I've been in terms of what it means beyond the darts going on there. But I was more excited for the World Championships, and it will take something to get me more excited for a week of Premier League action than it would for the start of the World Championships.
To quote Gary Anderson, we're getting there. It's been a long time, hasn't it, since we've had this many fans in the building for a game of darts, a session of darts that has been put on by the PDC. And we know that there's going to be a capacity of 1,000 each night. Now, whether they sell all those tickets, we don't know yet. We do know Thursday and Friday, the final league night, and then the finals night, they are both sold out. So that will be a 1,000 capacity. And okay, it's not anywhere near the crowds that we were getting before the pandemic. Week in, week out, they were getting some huge crowds for this Premier League. But as you say, it's a step in the right direction. And for that reason, it's why I'm looking forward to this week. I've watched the FA Cup final at the weekend, Chelsea against Leicester. They had over 20,000 fans in Wembley, and it was fantastic to watch. It was the first game that I've watched football-wise where I've been into it for a very long time. And the fans do make an impact in that. When you're hearing them react to different things, it does draw you in. And we are going to see that next week when the fans do come back, when they're reacting to big shots, the 180s, however many Jose de Sousa decides to hit in each game, when the big checkouts, the misses on the doubles, it's going to all bring it back. It's not going to be quite as good as it was before, but it's going to be heading in that right direction, isn't it? As far as is it the most excited I've been? Yeah, for a while, I agree with you. I had down here the World Championship when that was going on. It was great to have that still at Alexandra Palace. Sadly, we didn't have the fans for almost all of it, but it was the World Championship. It was the big one that we all look forward to, and we were treated to some great games during those couple of weeks. But aside from maybe the Masters, the UK Open, which are, of course, weekend events, a week of darts, Monday to Friday, with it being such a short gap between the final league night and the playoffs, it's going to be less than 24 hours. The league phase will finish and the first semi-final will get underway. That's going to be an interesting dynamic to follow, how the league phase finishes, who's going to be in form heading into that playoffs on the Friday night. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it, and especially with the fans coming back. I think it could have come at any time really, and we'd have been happy, but we've been through a lot of darts behind closed doors, and this Premier League, it does feel right that we are going to get the fans back next week, and should be an exciting finale, because Michael van Gerwen, he's very close to securing his spot. But aside from that, you've got 4 players, 5 players, 6 players, 5.5, I think you said last week maybe, that could be in the playoffs on that Friday night. So lots to look forward to.
Yeah, and well, let's start talking about the playoffs because we have our question of the week. 3 debutants in the Premier League this year, and they currently sit 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Dimitri Vandenberg in 3rd, and Jose de Sousa in 4th, just ahead of Johnny Clayton in 5th on goal differential. How many of those 3, 0, 1, 2, or all 3, do you think will qualify for the playoffs when it's all said and done after Thursday night?
That is a tough question. I'm just looking at the poll at the minute on Twitter, and 62% are going with 2 of the 3 to get through. 27% are going with 1, 4% going with 0. I think that would be a turn up if we didn't see any of Dimitri Vandenberg, Jose de Sousa, or Johnny Clayton in the playoffs on Friday. We are definitely going to get 1 at least. I'm probably going to side with 2 for this. I'm not quite sure who the 2 are going to be, because they are separated. Well, Dimitri's a point ahead of the other 2. The other 2, as you say, separated by goal difference, and it could come down to away goals. They've both got the same amount of away goals, 29 at the minute. I'm looking at the table here. But it's going to be tough to see all 3 of them get in, because I was looking at the lineup, the final rundown for this week, and all 3 of them, they are going to be playing each other. You're going to see Dimitri play Jose and Johnny. You're going to see Jose play Dimitri and Johnny. And you're going to see Johnny play Jose and Dimitri, if I've got that right. But yeah, so that's 2 of the 4 fixtures where 1 or both of them are going to be dropping points. So I think there is going to be a scenario where it could happen. We could see all 3 get in, but I think the safe bet is to go with the 2, and as I say, I can't quite call who's it going to be, but I think after the first couple of nights we might have an idea, because we'll see Jose would have played 2 of those 3 debutants, so I can't really call who are the 2 that are going to get through, but I'm going with 2.
I think it is possible for it to be 0, but it would be very, very, very difficult, because it would require Gary Anderson and James Wade to win all 3 matches, which would get them to 18 and 17. And Dimitri's playing the other 2 debutants still to go. Obviously, if he loses those matches, the opponents each go up to 16. So they're almost there to that 17. And if he draws either of them or draws both of them, then he's getting to 17. So I think we can say with safety that at least 1 of the 3 will make it. Not necessarily which one, but at least 1 of them will. And you think it would probably be 2. Gary Anderson still has every chance. He's only 2 points adrift. James Wade, I said, had half a chance last week. He's 3 points adrift. So, both of them, if they get hot, if they win their matches, they can make up the difference. But it's going to be difficult. It's going to be really, really difficult to see both of them. Or, Peter Wright if he wins out, but I don't think that will be, even that would be enough. But it'll be very difficult to expect both of them to just get on fire and win all their matches, or win all but when they draw each other on the final night, because that would be what it takes to catch them. But you could see one of them do it, and you could see either one of the 3 debutants start to struggle and not get results this week and fall down to 7th. So I think it's going to be 1 or 2. I don't think it'll be 3. I don't think Michael van Gerwen's going to drop off. I don't think Nathan Aspinall's going to drop off. He's just playing too consistently in this Premier League, and well, even outside the Premier League the last couple months. But I'm gonna go 2. I don't think Gary Anderson or James Wade will get into the top 4. I'm ready to be wrong on that. So I'm going to say 2, but I'm not going to predict which of the 2 it will be, because, well, you can make an argument that these are the 3 best players so far in the Premier League. The averages state that, and the performances don't offer much disagreement.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. Well, let's hear from one of the players who'll be looking to get into the playoffs next week. Is our chat with the 10-time TV title winner in the PDC, James Wade.
I'm joined today by the 10-time televised title winner, James Wade. James, how are you?
Very good, very good. Yourself?
I'm doing well, thank you, and thanks for joining us. We know you're on the road at the moment helping out the PDC and your sponsor, Unicorn, with the Support Your Local campaign. Can you tell us where you are right now and how the campaign's going?
Yeah. I'm currently in Aldershot, where I was born, at the pub called Golden Lion. We've just presented the dartboards, and as we were saying earlier, it's something that's so important to darts, that it's the grassroots, it's the foundations of darts, and we need it. I think everyone forgets that there's so many other opportunities now for dart players to start in the academies and stuff, but you've got to remember where people like Phil Taylor come from. He was originated as a pub dart player, and that's how important it is. In a pub could be a Phil Taylor in the making.
Now, you mentioned you're in Aldershot, where you're originally from. Did you play in any pub leagues when you were growing up, or did you have any? Well, what's your experience like playing in the pubs?
I grew up playing darts. That's where my youth was spent, in pubs playing darts. It's what I did rather than going out to play with other friends and stuff. Most of the time, I was in a pub playing darts, learning my trade.
Do you have any memories that stick out from that time and playing in the pubs?
There's so many memories, so many nights out. It's just so much fun I had. Sometimes it wasn't so fun as well, but I had so much fun during those early years playing darts out and about, and as I was always the younger one, I got treated to like takeaways and stuff. It was good fun. It's good fun.
Now, back to more of the present day. It's the first time that we've had you on the show since 2017, and since then you've added 3 more televised titles to your collection, the European Championship and World Series in 2018, and then most recently the UK Open just a couple months ago. How would you assess the last 3 to 4 years?
Yeah, I think the last year or so I've had time to reflect and sort myself out a little bit. I was going down I haven't been on the right garden path for probably 7 or 8 years with darts. I lost a lot of interest. I had a lot of things going on, and just recently I've managed to reconcentrate myself on the game and reevaluate where I am. And I think at the moment I'm doing all right. I still have extreme highs and extreme lows of the game, but at the moment it's going all right. It could be better, but it could be much worse.
So you mentioned losing interest. How difficult is it to play when motivation might not be at its top level?
Well, it's the same as anyone, whatever your job is. If you're a mechanic or a carpenter or a bricklayer, if you're not interested in your work, it's not a nice place to be, and perhaps that reflects on your work at times. But when you're enjoying your job, it's a lovely place to be, and you want to be there. It's no different, playing darts. Unfortunately, in darts, if you're not in the best place and you're not enjoying it, unfortunately, it's on TV in front of people. So people get to see when I've had a bad day at work. Most people, when they have a bad day at work, they just get to go home, shut their front door, and it's done.
Yeah, I understand that. Now, you definitely had some good days at darts back in March at the UK Open. Starting off against Ryan Joyce, 4-3 up. Next 12 legs all go with throw, and you come through in the decider 10-9. What did you take away from that win?
To be honest, I was ready for that game, and I felt ready for the weekend. And I knew I was going to do all right if I kept my composure in the games. And against Ryan, I've lost a few games to him, and I've won a few games. So it was a good positive movement on for the rest of the tournament. And
you followed that up, averaging for the rest of the weekend high 90s, low 100s, beating former world champion Rob Cross, Gabriel Clemens, Simon Whitlock, world number 1 Gerwin Price, and Luke Humphreys to lift the title. How do you look back on that weekend now?
Yeah, it was a good weekend's work, and it's what I'm capable of, and I'm capable of more and bigger and better things, But you're only as good as your last game, and I need to be as interested at every weekend as I was that weekend. And unfortunately, that's never going to happen. But I am getting that passion back for the game, and I am moving in the right direction. I'm never going to be someone that's fully committed and dedicated all the time, because that's not me and that's not my makeup. But when I am and I do, I get the results. So that's a positive thing. I've achieved what I've achieved in the game, and a lot of it's been when I haven't had 100% heart in it, or my mind hasn't been in the right place. So I've done all right, and I'm going to do better.
Well, let's look back a little bit with last year, because it was a challenging year for a lot of people with the pandemic. You made 2 finals last year, European Championship in front of a crowd and the Grand Slam behind closed doors. What was it like playing last year with the uncertainty and to make those 2 TV finals in the middle of it?
Yeah, it was different. It's different times, I don't think even when we return to what we call normality, it won't be quite the same ever again. But it's different, and I've played in so many different circumstances and situations in darts. I've been a professional dart player now for the best part of 20 years. There's not much I haven't seen or done, but the lockdown was definitely a new scenario and a new situation for me. And I just got on with it, same as everyone else did. I think some players do get a little bit of extra help from the crowd, and I think that's affected them massively. And I think other players, it hasn't really affected. So, it's horses for courses, but we all have to deal with the same thing. And we did the best we could, I think.
Now, of course, you also had an added complication last year, your manager stepping aside, but you landed with Mac Elkin. It seems so far to have been a successful partnership. How have you found being under Mac's management over the past 9 months or so?
Yeah, I mean, I have to be polite in how I word it, but Mac's been a very good management. He's done things. It's very organised. It's all been done correctly, and with that being done means I can not worry about where and when I'm going. I know where and when I'm going, and I can concentrate on my darts a little bit more and be a little bit more relaxed, because it is like that. I've known Mac for a long time. We was with friends, and it's not really a management. It is a management, but it's very friendly. It's a friendly relationship we've got, and it's a friend helping me out. Obviously, he is my manager, but it's not a pure business transaction with us. It's a friendship, and it's nice. It works.
Well, that's good to hear. You also mentioned, you've been a professional now for the better part of 20 years, and in this game, especially now with a bunch of players on their first or second year on the tour, what's been the most difficult thing about being able to stay at the top of the game for so long?
Being stupid? No. No, I don't know. Perhaps I've been able to take a bit of a back step from it, and darts isn't my everything. A lot of the players, it seems to be their everything, their life, their everything. And I think where it's not my everything, I think that's helped me. I don't know why I've got the longevity I've had in my career, how it's been so long. There's no real answer to that, apart from I think some players, they live, eat and sleep the game, and then that causes them to burn out with it. That's the only other real answer I have to that. I don't know any players that have had a career as long as mine, really, apart from Phil, perhaps 2 or 3 others, but that's about it.
Now, another thing that's been going on for a long time is between you and Unicorn. Your manufacturer must be at least a decade by now. How much has Unicorn? Yeah. I mean, I know, and you're currently, of course, doing the support your local with Unicorn, but how much has Unicorn helped you over your career?
Yeah, I mean, again, with Unicorn, it's been such a long time now. I'm part of the furniture. I know Edwin and Richard very well. It just works. It's a thing. Again, that was purely, as a dart manufacturer. But now, I've been out for meals with them. I've travelled around the world with them. We've spent a lot of time together, and it's a relationship rather, and it does become that. It becomes a relationship more than just a business in the end. And yeah, they've been a massive help to me, and they've been stability. When things haven't been great, they've looked after me, and they haven't turned their back on me. So it's always been a good thing, and you find good things last. And if something isn't good, it doesn't last. So that's one thing I will say in the world of darts. If something lasts more than a couple of 3 years, it's a good thing. And most things don't normally tend to last more than 2 or 3 years. So when you're onto a good thing because it lasts. It works for both parties. It's not just one-way traffic.
Of course. And now back to this year, we got to talk a little bit of the Premier League before we let you go. You were a last-minute replacement for Gerwyn Price after he tested positive for COVID. But you, of course, went to Milton Keynes as a backup, not expecting to get in. How hard was it to adjust that morning when you found out you were in the field?
Yeah, it was tricky. I hadn't thrown darts for 2 or 3 weeks before, and my first game was just straight into the game. So it's something I didn't get a chance to prepare for, but I've just got to get on with it, haven't I, really? You can't use any excuses because that's what we're all full of. But no, I wasn't ready for it. But I've played in it enough times, and I've played in enough big games to make the best of a position that I had, and I've done so on most of them. The last block I played in, Michael was very, very good, but 2 games before that I was so poor. And I feel that those 4 points that I lost will be very, very valuable. But, we'll still keep going, and we'll see if we can get some more.
Heading into those last 4 nights, as mentioned, 7th currently, 3 points off the top 4. What are the targets heading to next week? Do you think you need to win all 4 matches?
I don't really know. I don't look that far into it. I just know that my target is still to finish in the top 4, and if I can do it, I will. If I can't, I won't. I think you don't look at what you should do or what you can do. You just look at what you've got. What's in front of you. There's a lot of people that look too far in front or look too far behind. Concentrate on your current position, and see what happens.
Well, the next big event after the Premier League is the World Match Play. It'll be your 16th consecutive appearance in the event.
Yeah.
And, of course, this year it's back in Blackpool after having to be moved last year. How excited are you to be back at the Winter Gardens and in front of a crowd this year?
Yeah, I am looking forward to that. It's one of my favourite tournaments. It is my favourite tournament, and it's by far my favourite venues. It's something I really enjoy. 16 times, wow, that's a lot of times. It'd be nice to go a long way in the tournament as well. There's no reason why I can't. It's my preferred format, so we'll see. And the crowd, obviously, that'll just be the icing on the cake for that tournament for me. As I say, it's my favourite venue, my favourite tournament, and with the crowd, it'd be like birthdays and Christmas all in one.
And then lastly, I know you said you don't like to look too far ahead, but back up to number 4 in the world, 10 TV titles to your name. What targets or goals do you have and like to achieve over the rest of the year?
It'd be nice to bag another TV tournament, to be honest with you. That's what I'm looking at and what I'm looking forward to. But I've also got to give myself a bit of self-praise because I've got quite a good CV in the world of darts. I don't think there's many others that can say they've done what I've done. I'm just happy just to keep plodding along as I'm going and try and appreciate myself a little bit more in the game. I'm not someone that gets quite the what's the word? Not recognition. I think a lot of people don't realise what I have achieved in the game. I feel at times I perhaps get overlooked a little bit, but I want to try and tell myself what I've done and what I've achieved, and try and enjoy it a little bit more than I do.
Well, James, we hope you enjoyed just a little bit more, and we thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thanks again to James for joining us, and we've just heard from him, James Wade. He was helping out with the Support Your Local campaign, which the PDC and Unicorn have been doing recently. And I guess really in 2021, how important do you think having darts in pubs is?
I mean, it's obviously extremely important, not just because of, being able to get people out and playing again, but also for the grassroots of the sport and for the growth of the popularity of the sport. The growth in Germany, for example, definitely has been aided by the fact that you can now go places and find a dartboard in bars and pubs and other places in Germany, because people will watch it on TV and then decide, I'll go play it with my mates. And that helps grow the game. But it also helps develop talent. And we just heard from James Wade. He said he grew up in pubs. That's where he learned to play. That's where he played his early darts for the first decade or so of his, not the first few years of his life, because he was probably still crawling around until he was a couple years old. But, once he learned to walk and could pick up a dart, that's where he was playing as a kid. And he's not alone in that. There's players from his generation, from earlier generations, and from later generations who all have a similar story to his. We need to have that ability, not just in the UK, but everywhere, where someone, whether they're at a young age or they pick up the game later, to be able to go and practice their skill against other people doing the same thing. It's one thing having a dartboard at home. It's another when you're at a pub and you can actually play against someone. I think it's a great campaign. Good on Unicorn for doing this, and good on for players like James Wade for helping support it, to remember what it's like when he was starting out and having to rely on the fact that there was a pub around the corner that had a dartboard. He doesn't need that anymore, but he's still giving back, and it's something that I think is, well, especially after the year we've had, but even just in any year, a great thing to have.
Yeah, it's good to see. I have to admit, though, when I first saw the campaign and that the PDC had put their name to it, I was a little bit surprised. I mean, mainly because we know how much the PDC in particular have tried to make the game more professional over the years, especially at the top level. You look at players now, if they make a comment about alcohol in the media or anything like that, it is picked up on. And you only got to look at Peter Wright. His nickname is Snakebite. You ask him now, why are you called Snakebite? And he'll say, I like snakes and they bite. But if you asked him 5-10 years ago, it was because his favourite drink is a snake bite. And we know that alcohol is still involved in the game at every level, even at the top level, the PDC, maybe not as much as back in the day, the 70s, the 80s, when you were seeing players drinking pints on stage during the World Championship and having a fag on the go as well. But kudos to the PDC and Unicorn for doing this, because it is important, I think, as you say, to have darts involved in the pubs. Of course, nowadays there is more different options. There is different pathways for people. So your James Wades, your Phil Taylors that are coming through at a younger age. You have got the academies that are up and down the UK. You've got the JDC. You've got the development tour. You heard from Jack Main, one of the new tour card holders this year. I spoke to him. He's based around here in East Anglia. I said, what do you think of the darts scene in East Anglia? And he didn't really know how to answer it, because all the darts that he was playing really was the development tour. He went in straight at the deep end playing in PDC darts. So we are seeing different pathways nowadays in the game. But yeah, I do think it is important for the image to get darts out there. If you go into a pub and you see a pool table, you might pull out a 50p or a pound and have a game of pool. If you see a dartboard, you might ask behind the bar, do you have any darts that I can have a chuck with, my friends can have a chuck with? And it just keeps darts in people's minds, doesn't it? Okay, maybe not as often as football or any other sports out there, but it's a good tool to have, I think, for darts, to have the option where you go to a pub and you've got the dartboard up there and you can play on it. So yeah, definitely, I think it's been a great move for everyone to get involved in it, and as you say, great for James Wade to get involved. I'm sure there'll be a few other players that will help out as well. Good to see.
You mentioned having a chuck with the darts. Anyone can do it. What's your favorite moments from having a chuck with the darts at a pub over your lifetime?
Blimey, well, when I put that question in there, it did make me smile, actually, because it has been a long time since we've had, well, particularly in the UK at least anyway, we've been able to play pub darts. It's been a long time, especially in a league format anyway. But I did put this out before I go into my one. I did put out on Twitter, tweet us your favourite pub darts moment. And Derek Ashton, the partner of Lisa Ashton, got in touch with us, gave us his favourite moment, which was he thought that he'd beaten Lisa in a competition. He was 2-1 up. Turns out that the competition was a best of 5. It was first of 3, and he ended up losing 3-2, which I found quite funny. So yeah, thanks to everyone that got in touch with their favourite moments. Do keep them coming in. They are good to read. But I think for me, my one is probably the first game that I played actually for a pub team. I was just before I turned 16, a couple of weeks before I turned 16, I managed to join a team, and I played in the 4s, which for anyone who doesn't know that format is 4 players on each team, 1,001 one leg. Sometimes it will be double start, so you're throwing every 8th throw. You don't really get many darts, so that was my first glimpse of it. But the leg ended up with me hitting the double, first start in the double 4 with my throw, as it was back then, throwing behind my ear, and soon enough I got the nickname Zulu because it was like I was throwing the spears. So that was the moment that always sticks with me. So yeah, good times, and hopefully we'll be back playing darts in pubs soon and playing the leagues again. We'll have some more moments to add to that.
Yes, indeed. And I had my first throw in a pub a couple weeks ago. First, I should say, in over a year. Obviously had to throw once or twice before. Just getting back in the pub and throwing was up there for my favorite moment playing. But I don't think anything will take I said off air what I was going to go with. I'm going to say two things. First, I'll have to say my first ever 15 dart leg. And by my first ever 15 dart leg, I also mean my last ever 15 dart leg. Because that was just incredible. And it was right after my first ever 16 dart leg. And I was just I was in practice, but I was just so in the zone that I went 16, 15 consecutive legs. And they're still, to this day, I guess 2 years later, my two best legs ever, a 501 that is. As far as, though, the other thing I was thinking of, and this was in a game, I don't know, I'm sure some of our listeners know about darts cricket, where you have to hit 320s, 319s, etc., all the way through 15s plus 325s. And if you hit them before your opponent, you can then start scoring on them. So if you end up hitting 620s and your opponent hasn't hit 3, that's an extra 60 points because you've hit your 3 to close it, and plus 3 more is another 60 points. I can't recall how many 25s I needed to win. I think I needed 4 to win, maybe just 3. And my first dart was a bullseye, so that counts as 2 25s. My second dart was another bullseye, so I had won it. But I threw the third one anyway, and it's the only time in my life I've ever hit 3 bullseyes in one turn. And it took me a second to realize it because I was kind of in disbelief. But I'm pretty sure I scared half the pub with my thumb. I don't apologize at all for that because it was the first time I'd ever hit 3 bullseyes. Also the last time I've ever hit 3 bullseyes. But that will be my highlight because, well, 1, it was to win, and 2, I've never done it before.
Happy days. Well, let's move into our next guest on this week's show, and it is another player that's going to be pushing for the Premier League playoffs next week. Here's our chat with the former major winner, Nathan Aspinall. I'm delighted to say I'm joined by the former major winner, Nathan Aspinall. Thanks for the time again, Nathan. How are you doing?
Yeah, very well. How are you? You good?
All good, thank you. And we'll start by rewinding back to when we last had you on in the midst of the Grand Slam. You and Dimitri van der Berg go all the way in the quarterfinals, all 31 legs. It's a rivalry which is bubbling up nicely. How much do you relish those matchups?
Not much at the moment because you keep beating me. But no, it's I think it's great for myself to have someone around my age that I can go into battle with, shall we say, on regular occasions, and we always seem to have great games, me and Dimitri, and I just think it's showing everyone where darts is at the moment. There's a lot of young lads coming through, and it's good for the sport. We have great games, but he's got the upper hand at the moment. He's doing me head in. he keeps beating me in last leg deciders, and he's got one up on me at the moment, but hopefully put that right soon.
Well, speaking of great games, let's fast forward a little bit to the World Championship. You went in as the 6th seed and you had a cracker with Scott Waits coming back from 2-0 down to win 3-2. There was the 150 finish, Scott Waits with the 125. Is that a game which will stay in your memory for a long time?
No, I forgot about that, to be fair. It was a bad tournament. As soon as I got beat off Vincent, I forgot about the tournament straight away. I wasn't in the best of forms going into the tournament. I wasn't feeling good in myself. I had a lot of stuff going on at home, and I think it was a bad tournament for myself. Obviously, the previous 2 years I've had 2 fantastic runs, amazing memories from the Ali Pali, but certainly that was a disappointing event, and one that I very quickly forgot. That game itself obviously wasn't a great standard, but I did well to battle and come back. But I didn't take much from that tournament, to be fair.
That's fair enough. Well, there was a long break then before the Masters, I think around 4 or 5 weeks for the off season. So how did you spend that time?
Well, normally I'd go away in January with the family. Obviously, with what's gone on, it wasn't possible. Didn't really do anything. I put my darts down for probably 2 or 3 weeks, and then Target made me a new set, which is something that I wanted. I had a feeling that the restrictions were going to be in place for quite a while, and I was struggling back end of the year with my equipment, basically because the venues were so cold. I don't have much grip on my darts that I play with, so I designed a set of darts with a lot more grip on the back, and I was getting used to them. Probably 2 or 3 weeks building up to the Masters, and I thought, why not give them a go? I was playing really well with him, to be fair, in practice, and I won my first game, but I didn't feel comfortable with him. Obviously I won against Mansett again, came back from the brink of defeat to win, and then think it was Merv. There was nothing I could do against him. He played well. And that was kind of the Masters, really.
You touched on the change of equipment as well. I think you said in an interview before the Premier League about your partner Kirsty coming to the rescue to send your old darts during the Super Series. For those of our listeners who missed it, talk us through what happened.
Yeah, so I'm one of them guys. I don't like change. Even changing a flight is a massive thing for me. I've been like that with everything. For example, my golf clubs, I'm still using the same set of golf clubs that I used 15 years ago. I just don't like changing equipment. I've done well with these darts. Why change them? But something had to be done because of wasn't because of me, it was the environment that I was in. And I stuck with them. I played, I think it was 4 Pro Tours, I had 2 semi-finals, but I wasn't playing how I wanted to play. I was getting results, but wasn't playing well. And then I think it was the second block. Lisa beat me on the first day, and I was like, nah, enough's enough. And I phoned my partner up, Kirsty, and I said, go in my drawer, get them darts, put them in the post, and I need them here by 9 in the morning, please. And I got them to the hotel, and first game back from had 107 average, and I lost. But I felt so much more comfortable with them, and I've just gone back to what I know, what's won me tournaments in the past, and since going back to them darts, I feel the confidence has come back, and I'm playing really well with them.
And I'm guessing it's times like that when you're thankful that, I'm assuming they were the only set of darts in the draw, and it's not like Peter Wright when you've got maybe 100 sets of darts in the draw and you have to pick out the right ones.
Yeah, to be fair, she sent me a brand new setup. Again, I don't change the darts. Like, I've had the same set of darts probably 3 years. I don't change the bevels. The only thing I do is probably change my points once a year. But I just, it's all psychological, but they're the same set of darts, but I'm a bit like Michael, to be fair, in that respect. I've had the same set of darts for years, and she sent me a brand new setup, and there's obviously nothing I could do because it was there, and I've now stuck to them. So obviously there's a little bit more grip because they were a new set, but I'm thankful that there was only 2 or 3 sets of darts in there, and it was all the same dart, not like Pete.
Good to hear. Well, let's get on to the Premier League then, and I know we're going to get the fans back next week, but before the start of the season, I remember seeing a tweet you put up watching the opening night from Aberdeen last year with that big crowd. Going into the opening night this year, obviously behind closed doors, it must have felt like that was a different world away.
Yeah, good. Like you say, I remember me and Kirsty sat down to watch telly, and while she was making a brew, and I was just looking through what sport was on, and the Aberdeen was on, and I'm not lying, I was bricking it. I was watching it, I knew the result, but I was dead nervous because it was like, I couldn't imagine walking out in front of that anymore. It's quite surreal, really. But obviously, I was buzzing to be involved in the Premier League again. Like I said, I didn't have the best of years the last year, and obviously there was no crowd, so I was a bit worried that I would take to it, because I hadn't been playing well on TV, and obviously you don't really get a minute's peace in the Premier League. You have to be at it from dart one, and to be fair, I played really well. I was dead chuffed with how I played in the first block, and I felt like I was getting back to how I used to be, probably pre-lockdown, to be fair, with a little bit of bounce on stage, a little bit of swagger, a little bit of adrenaline, shall we say, and I was dead chuffed with how the first block went.
Yeah, it's been good to see, and we've got to go back to before a dart was even thrown in this Premier League, and on the morning of the start of it, the bad news for Gerwyn Price being forced out of the tournament, testing positive for COVID-19. I know there's been very few cases of that happening in the event so far with the PDC. That was easily the most profile so far. What was the reaction like in the practice room that night?
We just couldn't believe it, to be fair. There's only 10 lads, and the chances are very, very slim. And obviously when I was walking to get breakfast, and his mate John was walking past with his suitcase, and I went, he hasn't, and he has. I said, bloody hell. He's like, of all the players, he's just won the World Championship, and he's a good guy, Gezi. For him to miss out on the Premier League, having just become the World Champion, it must have been a right kick in the knackers for him, and I was good because I love playing Gezi. You know what I mean? He brings the best out of me. I love them adrenaline-fueled games. I think Van Gerwen said it in one of his interviews that, you know, he's shouting quite a lot because most of the players are boring in the Premier League, which I understand what it means. You don't really get much back from many players. Because he's certainly one of them guys that fires you up, and you know, for that reason alone, I was pretty gutted that he wasn't going to be in it. But it's one of them things that, you know, I'm sure he's enjoyed the 3 months off, because you know, once lockdown finishes, we're going to be very busy. So I'm sure he's had some good time off with the family, and he'll be ready to go next month.
Back to you though, it's been a good Premier League so far. You had a 8-game unbeaten run during it, and you're second in the table after 12 nights. I know you said after your first night, the win against Glendoran, everyone was writing you off and that you were going to get eliminated. So how good does it feel now to be in the position that you're in going into this final week?
Fantastic. I love proving people wrong. It's kind of one of my things that I've been written off all my life, not just in darts, but in going back to school days. You know, people always say, "Oh, you're not good enough," or this, that, and the other. And you know, I love coming out the other side of it, going, "I told you I was good enough," or you know, stick to your fingers up, and that's kind of what drives me on to perform well in anything I do. And yeah, it's been great because, like I say, I understand why the people thought I was getting eliminated, because I had you know, a bad season the year before, but going into the tournament, I had back-to-back semi-finals, and I was like, really? You really think I'm, you know, second favourite to get eliminated? But, you know, that's down to them, and, you know, hopefully them guys have put bets on and they've all lost. But yeah, I'm in a good position. You know, I just want to make that top 4. I made it last year, and that final night was, you know, to be involved in it was such an adrenaline rush, and, you know, hopefully I can do that again come Friday.
Yeah, you mentioned the playoffs, and you got into it on your debut season last year. You secured your spot in the final game of the season. I'm assuming you want to get it wrapped up a little bit sooner and not leave it quite as late this time.
Yeah, well, I think that was the problem last week, or whatever it was, 2 weeks ago. I was very disappointed with me. Well, not the Dimitri game, because I played well, but with the Johnny game, I was absolutely bobbins. And I think if we put that too much pressure on myself to try and wrap it up in that little block, because going into it, I'm thinking if I win 3 out of the 3, I'm pretty much in the playoffs, and I can come back in 2 weeks' time with, you know, maybe needing a point. And kind of looking back, it was a wrong attitude to have, which again, something I've learned from. But yeah, I was disappointed. I think I was burnt out as well. Again, looking back, I probably wouldn't have gone Germany. You know, I did okay out there. I kept my arm loose, but come that next block of 3 nights, I was shattered, to be fair. And like a lot of people know, I'm doing my house up, so I'm living at my dad's house at the moment. A lot of stress at home. Maybe probably wasn't the best thing to do was to go to Germany, but it's something I can do now. Just got to try and, you know, get back to how I was probably the first and second block. You know, get a big win against Michael on a Monday night, and like I say, it's in my hands then. But yeah, I don't fancy going through what I did last year and having to win on the last night. It's especially against Jose, because he's such a great player. We
have to mention the fans as well. Next week we're going to have up to 1,000 in Milton Keynes, sold out for the last 2 nights. You've said before about how without the fans the buzz goes from it. It's not darts, so you must be so excited to have them back next week.
Yeah, I've been saying it all week to Kristian. We've been away this week, and I just all keep going on about it. Can't wait. And yeah, I think me more than anyone has missed him, because like I'm still new into my career, and you know, obviously probably Michael and James and, you know, the people that have been around a lot longer probably won't get the buzz that I get even on the walk on. And I've missed it so much, and yeah, I just can't wait for them. I've got a lot of mates coming up on various nights, and yeah, that first night, especially because I'm playing Michael as well, it's going to be very special. And yeah, hopefully I won't need to keep drinking cans of Red Bull. Hopefully I'll have enough adrenaline without the Red Bull this time.
Brilliant. Well, away from the darts, you mentioned you've just been away with the family for a break. We know you like a round of golf, so with the restrictions starting to be lifted now, how good was it to get away and all these things coming back now?
Yeah, brilliant. Like I say, I booked it, I think it was the last night of the Premier League. I just started in the practice room, and so I've not really, the kids have been cooped up in a loft for the last 6 weeks while my house is getting done, and it's not ideal, and obviously I've been away quite a lot, so just went on my phone, booked centre parks. I have to win the Premier League because of how much money it cost me. Jesus Christ. It was quite expensive centre parks. I've never been before. Wow. But we had a great weekend away. Like I say, I've been having a couple of rounds of golf. I'm actually playing this afternoon. It just takes your mind off the darts. You know, I've had my family time. I'm now having a bit of Nathan time on the golf course, and just trying to get mentally prepared and get ready for next week. And in between all the fun, I'm throwing a few darts as well.
Well, speaking of getting prepared for next week, the pub's opening indoors this week too. I think you practice at your manager's office, if I recall correctly. So
yeah, I do. That's where I am now.
Oh, well, what does the rest of the week look like for your preparation leading into Monday and that game with Michael van Gerwen?
So I'm in the office now. I'm having here for probably another 3 hours practicing, and then teeing off at 2:30. I've got a tee time at 2:30 and a comp, so I'll be playing golf this afternoon. Back in the office tomorrow morning about 10. Another 4 hours. The missus don't know yet, but I'm playing golf again tomorrow night at 4. And then back in the office Friday. Practice for another 4 hours Friday. And then Saturday I'm at the physio for my back. My brother's birthday Saturday. And then get packed and ready to come down Sunday.
Busy week. Well, lastly, before we let you get back to your practice and your Nathan time, back in the day you were a goalkeeper. So how do you think England will get on in the Euros this summer? Is it coming home?
I bloody hope so. We talked about it last night when we were playing golf, and we were actually the favourites to win it. I didn't know if you knew that, but we're 5-1 favourites to win it.
Wow.
And I think the three up top, there's not a better team at all. Obviously with Foden, Kane and Rashford, it's pretty frightening to be fair. Just a defence in it, but fingers crossed. 1966, I wasn't even a 40. My dad died then. He was only born then. So obviously to live through a Euro final or a World Cup final will be amazing. And what a day, or what 3 days it would be if we got to the final. So fingers crossed, it'd be brilliant. Unfortunately, the PDC have put a tournament on the first 2 games, so I won't be able to have a party. I'll have to watch it in my hotel room. But can't wait, and fingers crossed it comes home.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that. Well, Nathan, it's always a pleasure to catch up. Appreciate your time, and we wish you all the best for the rest of this week, the prep for next week, and of course next week, the final week of the Premier League. Hope it goes well.
Yeah, brilliant. Cheers, guys.
Thanks again to Nathan for joining us. Now let's get into our picks. The race for the playoffs is pretty tight, but what's more tighter is the battle of the co-hosts. At the minute, after 12 nights, it is 68-67 to me, 1 point separating us with 5 nights to go. It all comes down to this final week, and we're going to go through our picks for Monday, night 13 of the Premier League in Milton Keynes, the new home of World Darts. The first game up, the first game with the fans back. It is Johnny Clayton against Gary Anderson. How do you see this first game going?
Yeah, it looks. Hopefully this frame. Hope we stop fouling on the. What are we on the blue ball now in this frame that you leave 6? Pretty much every point being fouls up to this point. Although that was a nice break of 3 you had in the earlier on. I mean, Gary is coming off of unquestionably his best of the 3 sets of matches so far. Okay, lost to Jose in the first match, but that was just absolutely brilliant against Peter Wright, and then was even more brilliant against Dimitri Vandenberg. It's the best we've seen from Gary Anderson, not just this Premier League, but in over a year now. Johnny Clayton, I think you can say pretty much the opposite about. Okay, he did get 4 points from those 3 matches, but his performances went in the opposite direction. He started with a very good match against James Wade, but then really fell off. The bizarre match against Michael van Gerwen, where neither of them got going until it was halfway through. And then against Nathan Aspinall, where he did win, but again, neither of them really got going. But you have to think, for the form we've seen from Johnny Clayton this year, he's going to bounce back. Gary Anderson, if he's back to his best, okay, then he'll kick on. But I need to see more before I say that. I think Johnny Clayton just seems that little bit better overall this year. So I'm going to go Johnny Clayton to get the wins and provisionally move back into the top 4. I'll go 8-6 to the Ferret.
I'm going to go the other direction. I think this is going to be a win for Gary Anderson. He's really going to push himself towards the playoffs in this final week of the season. The first meeting between these 2 players back on, I think it was night 5, Johnny Clayton getting the win 7-4, and that win moved him to the top of the table after 5 nights. Gary Anderson was down in 8th position. He was looking over his shoulder. potentially looking at being eliminated on Judgment Night. Since then, both players I looked have picked up the same amount of points. They've both picked up 7 points out of the next 7 nights. They've not really pushed towards the top of the table, if you like. They've not been in contention for that top spot, but they are still in contention for the playoffs, and especially Gary Anderson the last couple of nights. You mentioned it there, 104, 107 averages for the last couple of nights, and really did put himself back in the mix. Johnny Clayton started that third block with a big average, the 105, and then dipped into the low 90s, which we've not seen too much of during 2021. Now, there has been a few weeks since those games. If this would have been the following night, you would have been backing Gary Anderson a lot more, but we've had that couple of weeks break. We've got Johnny Clayton coming back feeling probably a little bit refreshed. He's done a bit more plastering, but I'm going to go with Gary Anderson. I think he's going to get the nod on this one. I'm going to go 8-5.
Second match, well, I was going to say third place, fourth, but it does depend who's right on the first match. If I'm right, it'll be fourth place against fifth place. If you're right, it'll still be third place against fourth place. And if neither of us are right, it'll be third place against fifth place. But it's Dimitri Vandenberg against Jose de Sousa. How do you see this one?
Yeah, the battle of the Phoenix Darts Europe ambassadors, and they're both having a great Premier League debut season so far. They're in the playoffs heading into this final week. I'm going to go down the middle. I'm going to go with a draw on this one, 7-7. It's a tough one to call. They're both playing pretty well, aren't they? Looking at the averages for the whole tournament, Jose de Sousa is currently in third on that list, and then you've got Dimitri Vandenberg, who is top on that, and there's not much between them. 99.86 for Dimitri, 99.65 for Jose. So it's very close between the two of them. They are big scorers. They know when they can pull out the big finishes as well. Jose, his first Premier League win was against Dimitri. I'm going to go with a draw on this one. I know Jose's got a good head-to-head, but I think it's just going to go to the final leg, and I think Dimitri's maybe going to pull out the leg to seal a point and ensure that the points are shared. I'm going 7-7.
It's a tough one to pick, but I just have a feeling that Jose de Sousa is just going to have one of those weeks he'll never forget in a good way. And I think it starts with a just scintillating performance against Dimitri Vandenberg. I don't think Dimitri will do much wrong. He hasn't done much wrong over the entire Premier League. Even when he isn't winning, he's still usually playing fantastically, and that's why he's up there averaging over a ton or almost a ton for the tournament. But Jose is just, I think, going to have one of those weeks. I'm going to go 8-4 to Jose de Sousa, and I'm going to use my joker on this. I might be using my joker on Jose all week until I see a reason to go otherwise, because I just have one of those feelings that it's going to be that kind of week from him.
Third game of the night, and heading into the night, it will be the battle of the top two, Michael van Gerwen against Nathan Aspinall. How do you see this third game going?
It's the handicapper's nightmare, and he was he was very predictable the previous week of Premier League play. It's just win, 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 two great performances, and okay, that bizarre one that I mentioned earlier against Johnny Clayton, but he still won. But Nathan Aspinall's been not doing that terribly this Premier League himself, even though he's lost his last two matches. I'm going to go for a draw on this one. I think Aspinall needs to get something out of this, especially if Johnny Clayton and Jose de Sousa both win, because otherwise, he'll by the time they play, if I'm right, he'll be down in fourth place, just ahead of Dimitri Vandenberg on goal differential. So getting a result will matter. But, if the results go the way I say they will, it will also matter for Michael van Gerwen, because suddenly he'll just be a 2 points clear of fifth. So while both of them would like a win, I don't think either would begrudge a draw. And it just seems like a match. If I'm right on the first two, both players would be okay with a draw. So I'm going 7-7, because I think the night will just allow for that.
I think that is one of the rare occasions when you've not backed one of our guests to lose their game. You've got them to get a draw, though. You've not backed them to get the win. I was going for a draw on this one as well. I might change my mind. I'm thinking I don't want to go the same as you, but it is a hard one to call. And you've heard from Nathan Aspinall on the show earlier, and he's one of the players that has really missed the crowd during the last 12 months or so when they've not been there. And Michael van Gerwen's been exactly the same. You'd probably put them to, if you had to pick the four players at the top of the game that have missed the crowd the most, those two names would come up more often than not, and that they're going to play each other in their first game when they've got the fans back. I think is going to be it's going to serve up a great game for us. The head-to-head as well. Nathan Aspinall, okay, he's not won more games against Michael than Michael's won against him, but the record is pretty close considering you've got 4 wins for Nathan, a draw, and then 6 wins for Michael van Gerwen. And I think most players would take that as a head-to-head with the player that has been top of the game for a long time. So Yeah, I think I am going to stick with my original pick. I'm going to go with a draw on this one. I'm going to go the same, but yeah, I'm going 7-0.
And lastly, at the foot of the table, James Wade against Peter Wright. 7th takes on 8th. How do you see this one?
Again, a tough one to call because, okay, look at the averages from the last game that these two players played. You had James Wade with 110 average. You had Peter Wright with an 84 average. So 26 points basically between them. And if they were to bring that form into Monday night, you would say, well, how many legs is Peter Wright going to win? Because if someone's throwing 110 average against you, you're not going to get many legs averaging 84. But as we know with darts, it is all on the day. And there has been a couple of weeks break between night 12 and night 13. And you've got the added caveat of the fans coming back. And we've said before that Peter Wright, we were maybe backing him to have a push towards the playoffs with the incentive of the fans coming back, but he had a disastrous week in that third week, losing all 3 of his games. He is pretty much out of it. I don't think 4 wins is going to be enough for him, but he's going to want to play spoiler. He's going to want to jump up a couple of spots and get a bit more prize money, if you like, and get a bit of confidence going. But I'm going to go with James Wade. I'm going to back the guest that we've had on to get the win. I'm going to say it's going to be a closer game than maybe we'd have predicted a couple of weeks ago. I think Peter Wright, with the fans back, is going to perform better, but I think it's not going to be enough at the moment against James Wade. I'm going to go 8-5 to James Wade, and this is the game I'm playing my joker on.
Yeah, I mean, the big question on this one is Peter Wright going to be fit? Because we know he's battling injury, and it showed last set of matches. If he is able to play at or near his best, he has every chance to bounce back this week. Not necessarily to get to the playoffs, because that's just too big of an ask with the 5-point, and if I'm right, 7-point deficit that he'll have by the time he takes to the stage. But every chance in any given match to win. But if he's not, I just don't see him having more than half a prayer against James Wade right now. As you mentioned, James Wade, okay, he lost his last match, but he averaged 110. He didn't do much wrong against the former world number 1 and current Premier League leader. I can't pick Peter Wright right now because there's too many question marks about his health. So I'm gonna, even though you mentioned before, I don't normally pick our guests, but maybe I'm becoming a little bit soft this season because I already picked a couple draws earlier this year involving our guest, I think with Dimitri Vandenberg, and I picked one with Nathan. I'm actually going a step further. I'm going to pick James Wade to win. I can't recall the last time I picked one of our guests to win. It probably was Series 2, but I'm doing it this time. I'll go 8-5. Oh, you said 8-5? I'll go 8-4, the machine.
Congratulations to Peter Wright, who's going to get a win next Monday in the final game of the night. But those are our picks for the first night back of the Premier League next week. Get involved with your picks. Download the PDC Picks app, courtesy of our friends at Low Six, who of course present this show. 18 plus, UK residents only, T&Cs apply. Please gamble responsibly. BeGambleAware.org. They've got some free contests on the app, some other contests where you pay some money to get involved, and there's some bigger prize pots involved. So get involved with them, and of course we'll be back with our picks throughout the week on our Twitter as well. So if you want to know what we're backing for each night, we'll let you know. But let's get into our next guest on this week's show. And we're heading over to the Faroe Islands. We're going to go and chat with the Vice President of the Faroese Darts Federation, Kristian Joensen. I'm pleased to say I'm joined by the Vice President of the Faroese Darts Federation, Kristian Joensen. Thanks for the time, Kristian. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you, Alex.
Thanks for the time. Let's start with yourself. The Faroe Islands and darts isn't a combination we would think of. So how did you first get introduced to darts?
Darts in the Faroe Islands started in the year 1990. There was a Faroese baker who was in Denmark and starting to play darts. When he arrived in the Faroe Islands, he started to play in the Faroe Islands and make a club. And then there comes a lot of clubs. And in the 90s, there were about 20 clubs in the Faroe Islands. Then the dart stopped in, 2004 or something like that. It goes down, and I went to Denmark in 2010, living there for 2 years, and then I came back. I played a lot of darts in Denmark. I said to the people there, we just have to get dart up again. So 2013, we start again, and now there are 9 clubs. Just a new club came last week. So we are about... we're over 100 players playing the league at the moment. So, the darts have a good life here. So in 2018, we've been accepted as a sport in the Faroe Islands. Then we had searched for the VDF membership. And at World Cup in Romania 2019, we got a membership in the World's Darts Federation. Our first ranked tournament from the World Darts Federation should be last year, the 15th of March last year. But COVID-19 stopped it all. It closed the country on 12th of March, so we couldn't have anything. Some players were thinking there were about 100 players from abroad should come here to play. And some players who were arrived from Spain were arrived to the Faroe Islands, and we were so sorry they couldn't come into a pub, they couldn't come into a dart club, they couldn't come in anywhere. But they wrote to us and they say they had a good time at the Faroe Islands, so it was okay. So now we are hoping to have our first World Darts Federation's ranked tournament this year. We hope later this year. We are hoping so.
Great to hear. Well, you mentioned there about how darts in the Faroe Islands kind of had a bit of a boom period in the 90s, then it dropped off a little bit. Do you know why it dropped off? Just people weren't as interested? What happened at that time?
The clubs are paying some money to rent some locations to play, and the clubs were getting smaller and smaller, and the money is getting smaller and smaller. So I think that was the reason. So, but now we have all clubs have good locations, and there are a lot more money in the community. So I think it's good now. So I think it was something about money and interest from darts. I don't know really why, but I think so.
Well, it's great to hear that the interest is coming back, and you said you spent a few years in Denmark and then came back and said that you wanted to get darts going again. So what steps did you take? What did you do to get that interest back again?
Yeah, I wrote something on Facebook and asked people if they're interested. Then I found 13 people in my hometown, and we went to a meeting, and we make a new club, and then we go to talking to some sponsors, and we get a good location, we get some money, get some boards, and today it's about 40 members in our club, and we have 12 boards, and then we have Darts Connect to every board, and the clubs, it's amazing today. So just look back, for 8 years ago there was no clubs, and now there is 9 clubs in the Faroe Islands, so it's fantastic.
And what about following the professional side of darts, like the PDC? Is there any TV coverage of the tournaments, or how do you guys at the Faroe Islands follow what's going on in the big events?
We watch on PDC TV, and we watch the Danish television also. We see the big events on the PDC. We can see all matches just like everyone else, so it's okay. It's we can follow everything here.
Well, let's get on to your role then with the FDF. You're the vice president. Did you have any other roles in the organisation before then, and how did that come about?
When it started up again, 2013, in 2014 we were 4 clubs in the Faroe Islands, and we were thinking about we just have to be accepted as a sport in the Faroe Islands. How do we do that? We have to have an organisation. Then we sit together in 2014, get a board with 3 members. Just the same members as today. We have been elected every year since then. So it's Then we started the organization. I've become a vice president then, and we had the same president since 2014. So it's fine.
Doing a great job. And you mentioned earlier, towards the end of 2019, granted membership into the WDF. How important was getting that membership to help continue what you're doing in the Faroe Islands, growing darts?
That's very important. It's very important for us to, first of all, recognize us as a nation, and also then we can have some World Darts Federation ranked tournaments here. We can go out to the World Cup and the European Cup as a national team, and that's very important for good players. They have something to look forward to. So it's amazing, and now it's also open something for the youth players. We have not so many youth players, but the youth players, we tell them that they can come abroad to play, and now they practice a lot. Those youth players that are here, so it has a lot to say.
One of the reasons I wanted to get you on, I mentioned before we started on the air, is that I saw the pictures from last weekend. You had a national ranking event, and I shared some of the pictures on our Twitter. It looked like a great setup. A lot of our listeners liked it. Where was that event held? Do all the events take place in settings like that?
No, the events, we have 8 ranked events through the year, plus doubles and plus mixed doubles and something like that. But the singles, we have 8 ranked tournaments. And they're traveling around the country. That event we were playing, the place we were playing in the last event was the place where we should have the World Dartcast Rank tournament last year, Faroe Islands Open and Torson Open. So we tried it first time, and it was amazing. It was beautiful, and it was a very good location. So we're seeing forward to use it for a second time, maybe later this year. So it was good. It is a school, a high school. So but very new from last year, I think. So it's a good place to play.
It looked great, and another reason those pictures caught my eye was because it was in-person darts, not at a professional level, which has been few and far between during the last year for a lot of places. So what has the last year been like in the Faroe Islands? It looks like COVID-19 hasn't been a big issue as far as cases and deaths where you are.
No, it's the COVID-19 has not been a big issue for us. It was just in March last year, the country closed down for 14 days, and then it opened again slowly, and then it went down again for 14 days. For the clubs, it meant that all the clubs were closed for about 1 month last year, and then it was open again, and the tournaments have been just like normal. It's also no problem. We don't wear masks and something like that when we play. So it's, we feel sorry for all the other countries, but here we are, we're good. And the UK have just opened for travel to the Faroe Islands. So I think it's a good thing. Yeah,
I might have to book up a flight soon to get some in-person darts in. Well, the event I mentioned, weekend just gone, Jan McIntosh taking the title, 72 average for the day. I was looking on Dart Connect. Is that roughly where the bar is currently as far as the standard of darts in the Faroe Islands? The top players in the 70s creeping into the 80s?
Yeah, they're creeping in the 80s. Jan McIntosh has been our best player the last 2 years. I think he has won almost every single tournament. He's playing with 72 average through all the tournament, but he also played against some bad players, and his averages go a little bit down. But when he plays against a good player, he's playing an average of about 85, maybe 90. So yeah, that's our best players at the moment.
And you mentioned earlier as well, last year you did have 2 WDF ranking events planned in the calendar for March and then pushed back to October. They were cancelled, unfortunately. You mentioned there you've got plans to get them in place for this year. Have you got any dates or any rough idea when you want to get them in?
We are not sure about the dates yet because we have to find out when we can come into our location or something like that. But we think it's going to be in October, maybe November, but I think it's going to be October. I think so. I'm not 100% sure, so I can't promise anything. We're hoping to get it in October because it's easier for us to have it off season because of the hotels or something like that. Because that's not so many hotels in the Faroe Islands. The hotels are playing better with when it's off season. So I think it's going to be October.
Well, fingers crossed for that. And lastly, before I let you go, looking ahead when the rest of the world, I guess, gets back to a bit more normality, what plans do you and the team have for darts in the Faroe Islands? Where would you like to take it?
We have taken big steps, one step at a time. This year we have Darts Connect at every club in the Faroe Islands. Every board in the Faroe Islands have Darts Connect, and we get better and better to play darts. And it's going to be, and when we get into the WDF, our plan was to get in the top 32 in the world, but we can't play yet, so we don't know. We don't know where we are and where it is, but our thought is that we're gonna be top 32 in the world because we have. Faroe Islands is the only national team in the world that never have lost a national game. We have played 2 against Iceland and 1 both, so we see forward to play more national matches.
Wow, that's an impressive record. Fingers crossed you guys can get your WDF ranking events on this year and keep up the great work that yourself and the rest of the team are doing, and we appreciate the time and best of luck for the rest of the year.
Thank you, Alex. Have a good time.
Thanks again to Kristian for joining us, and we'll finish up the show with a couple of listener questions. The first one comes from Richard Stanway. He says, if you could introduce a new match format in darts, what would you choose?
It's a really difficult question. I'm not sure what I would introduce at the professional level. I do like the idea of bringing back something like the News of the World, which would also involve pulling up each leg as it was traditionally done. I like the way that the World Cup was originally done, where it was in the pairs, where loser through first each leg. And it added an extra dimension. It made that England-Spain match all the more interesting, because not just was Spain up, I think 5-1, but because of the loser through thing, that was going to require England to break in 5 consecutive legs. And I just think that works for something like the World Cup. But, I can't think of many more ideas. More double N things would be great. But I do like inventing games when I'm just playing at a pub, for instance. And one that I came up with the other day, haven't yet tried it out, but trying to figure out how it would work, was the idea that you could steal one of your opponent's darts for the cost of 2 of your darts. And there'd have to be some way to earn the right to do that. But let's say you need you want a good visit, but at our level, we're not all that good. You can surrender 2 of your darts and steal away with one of the darts your opponent just threw, or something like that. But again, it's just an idea that I've been trying to figure out how I could make it work. It obviously wouldn't work at the professional level. No professional would turn down 2 darts just for any one dart their opponent took, unless it was the dart at double. So yeah, I'm just brainstorming some ideas. But there's stuff out there, and there are fun games that you can invent on your own. But so if that. At that, yeah, I think there are ideas, but at the professional level, I don't really have any.
I'll have to try that one out when I'm back in the pub playing soon. The one that I always play with my friends, because they never want to play a leg of 501 because A, they can't count, and I don't like doing the chalking for both sides, and the games take too long because I end up mucking around on the doubles. So the game that we always play is called 20 double. So at the start of each leg, you have to score 20 points, and then you can throw it any double on the board. That's your leg 1. So you could essentially not throw a dart and lose the game. Come up with various different rules in it. So if you throw a 180, so you've got your 20 with your first dart, but if you go for the 180, get the 180, you win the whole game. So it's 0-0, and we're playing however many first to 5, first to 10. If you get a 180, you win the whole game. I played this game with Dan Dawson actually at the Target launch a few years ago, and he was smashing me at the game that he'd never played before and that I'd invented. And I said, oh, go on, last leg, you've got to do a blind double, Adrian Lewis. And he did it. He threw a blind double 13, which is one of the best darts that I've seen live. So that's one of the games that we play. As far as the professional side of things, it's hard to see any formats coming into the game, isn't it? But you mentioned the World Cup. I think that's a great idea, getting that mugs away. The loser starts the next leg. Getting that back in would be good. And I personally would like to see, as I've said before on the show, doubles all the way through, best of 11, best of 15 all the way through. That would be my bet. But yeah, that or the News of the World, I think, would be some good formats to bring in.
And our next question of the week comes from George Dobson. If you had to pick one player to look after your dog for a weekend, who would it be?
I think it's an easy answer. You've got 2 options. You can either go with Wesley Harms or Cristo Reyes, because it's been over a year now since we've seen them play on the PDC Tour. We don't know the reasons for it, but we, of course, wish them both all the best. And you mentioned Cristo on the show last week. We've not seen him for a long time, but they've spent a lot of weekends, I'm guessing, at home over the last year. So they'd probably be a safe bet to leave it with them. One person I wouldn't go with, though, is Ko Stompy. If you go back 2011, the Christmas break during the World Championship, he went out with some friends and got bitten by a dog. He came back afterwards and lost his next game to Terry Jenkins, and that was probably one of his best chances to go on a deep run at the World Championship. And the dog, he ruined everything.
Well, you and I went in the opposite direction on this. You said you would not go with Ko Stompy, but I would go with Mark Walsh for the simple reason that it would give us, since he's looking after my dog, unless he sneaks out before I got back to collect the dog, it would give us a chance to finally get him and have a full 3-hour interview with him for the podcast. So that's why I would go Mark Walsh. Beyond that, no, just Mark Walsh. That's the only person who I would trust. Anything else for this week?
As always, we have to say big thank you to our guests for joining us, for taking the time to have a chat. Big thank you to everyone for listening. Thanks to everyone that got in touch with us last week as well. We had a lot of nice messages on social media and a few messages as well that we had privately saying congratulations on the 200 episodes. Keep up what you're doing for darts. So we really appreciate that. Thanks to Low Six, our sponsors who present the show. Get involved with the PDC Picks app. We have got the Dartscast trivia coming back this week. We forgot to do it last week, but the winner from episode 199, Henry Deacon and Chris B, were the joint winners. This week's trivia question is a simple one. How much have you been following this show over the last 4 years? We want to know which guest has appeared the most times on the weekly Dartscast. Tweet us your answer, and of course, as always, the first one to get it right will get a shout out on the next show.
Yes, indeed. And I know I was off by a few on my guess who it was, because the person I had, I think, had just more than half the number of the correct answers. So I obviously haven't been paying enough attention myself. But for Alex Moss, I am Burton DeWitt. Thank you for listening. Episode 201. We're almost up to what I think is the bigger milestone of 210, since on a quadro board, that's the highest checkout. That's the 170 of a quadro board. So I think that's our real milestone, not 200. But thank you to everyone who's listened, to everyone who is listening, and everyone who's been on, and everyone who will be on, as well as our sponsors, etc. If I forgot to thank you, I'll just let me know, and I'll thank you next time when we're back for episode 202, and to look back at, well, the end of the Premier League. Until then, hang tight.